Here are the 10 most important concepts all athletes should know about training and sports performance. This is a full summary of each topic I'm going to go over, all of which will have several important details that I think every athlete, parent, and coach should know. A few highlights here, including how you didn't know there were phases when it comes to sprinting. Fast feet don't matter. Coaches are running practices too fast and creating the chaos. Your body has a speed limit in which is based on how fast you can slow down, and a ton more. Starting off with sprinting mechanics. When it comes to sprinting in a straight line, there are two phases, an acceleration phase and a top end speed phase, both of which have mechanical differences when it comes to movement. And in order to maximize not only your short burst speed, but to increase your top speed, you'll want to master these mechanics. The first thing to understand is what they look like. During the acceleration phase, you'll be more at an angle and legs will be moving in a piston-like motion. The shins also stay more at an angle, with the feet staying low to the ground. This phase happens during the beginning of a sprint as you're trying to get up to speed as fast as possible. The legs will start cycling or moving in a circular motion. Then once you get up to speed, your posture will gradually start to become upright, with the foot recovering underneath the hip, then out in front and finishing by snapping back, almost pulling the ground under you. A lot of athletes, all too common, are using top-end speed mechanics during their acceleration phase, which is limiting their overall speed. Note, I have videos on almost all of these topics that go in more depth. In this video, I'm just touching on each concept a little bit, condensing everything into kind of a master video. In order to run fast, you must run fast. I could have paired this with the first topic because it's relation, but because it's so important and oftentimes glanced over, I gave its own category. There are tons of great training concepts to work on speed. You've got sleds, plyos, or just pure strength training. But at the end of the day, hands down, the most important training element, modality, or concept when it comes to getting faster is you must sprint fast. Those who sprint faster more often get to sprint faster, which I know sounds ridiculous, but think about it this way. If you were to take 100 random athletes, ages 16 from each sport that participate in track, soccer, football, volleyball, and bowling, have them race, which sport would have the most athletes in the top 20? It would probably be in that order: track first, soccer, football, volleyball, and finally bowling. It's also the order to which those individuals tend to do the most sprints, or more important, sprints at higher efforts consistently. If you want to sprint faster, then you need to sprint faster more often. Which means when it comes to training and you're more specifically working on your speed, change direction, or agility, you need to make sure you take breaks. The more often that you do a drill or sprint closer to 100% effort inside of a training session, the quicker you'll be able to improve your performance or speed. And in order to give as much effort as you can in each rep or drill, you must take the appropriate length breaks to recover properly and hit it again. Which is also why a lot of coaches, when it comes to drills or running the practices, they need to slow down a little bit. I get it. Sometimes drills need to be go. But if you're sacrificing performance or speed of the drill without long enough breaks, then you're the one ensuing the chaos of the drill. Sometimes in order to speed up, we must slow things down. Intensity through intention, not intensity through insanity or chaos. Over at the gym, for example, when doing sprints or any type of speed drill, the breaks are a minimum of 1 minute long. Then over time, as fatigue starts to set in, the breaks increase to 1.5 to 2 minutes long. If we're outside and doing longer distance sprints or higher intensity sled work, the breaks get up to 3 minutes long. Again, the objective of those breaks is to allow an athlete to recover enough to give them the potential of moving closer to 100% effort on each rep or sprint. If you're not taking long enough breaks to move closer to 100% effort, then you are not doing speed training, you're just doing hard conditioning. In a lot of ways, those that don't know any better from an athlete standpoint, a parental one, or even from a coach, the longer break times might be perceived as weak or not pushing hard enough. But in reality, it's a way more efficient way of actually doing performance training to improve an athlete's speed based on actual science. Going harder or just pushing to exhaustion is not always smarter. The intensity needs to be inside of each individual rep versus the workout just driving you into the ground because you don't have long enough breaks or you're doing too many reps. 10 to 15 really fast sprints with long enough breaks in comparison to 15 to 30 fast to moderate ones is the true way of getting faster, even though it might not seem as exhausting. A way to really maximize training, and another way to really see why the break times are important, is you need to test and measure yourself consistently to look at your performance improvements. Especially if you're with a sports performance program, which I hope they are testing you. If you're not regularly testing and checking at least your speed or vertical, you're really just guessing at improvement. Testing on a laser is not only a great way to measure progress, but a way to push yourself. If you don't have access to a laser, you can always do something really simple. Record yourself on your phone at a side angle. Then you can go back and put it in slow motion to check speed. It actually works pretty well as long as you measure out the distance the same each time and have markers in the start and end that you can clearly see in the video. Then you can simply just slow down the video and check the timestamps to see when you began and when you ended to test progress. All athletes need to jump and do plyometrics. It doesn't matter if you're a jumping athlete per se, a basketball player or a volleyball player. All athletes need to jump and do plyos. Sprinting is basically a bunch of quick and explosive single leg bounces. Change direction is heavily based on your ability to slow down and absorb force, just like when loading or landing a jump. And there are all sorts of benefits that an athlete can get from jump training, not only from a performance standpoint, from an injury standpoint as well. Here are some basic ideas surrounding jump training. Almost everything done in sports is based on force application and force absorption. So applying force or absorbing it. Or they are based in the category of triple flexion to triple extension, which is a key concept to a bunch of movements in all sports. Simply put, when looking at a jump, triple flexion is where the ankle, knee, and hip flex during the loading period. Promptly after the proper timing, load sequence, and force applied down to jump up, you go into triple extension, to whereas the ankle, knee, and hip extend. An athlete that can do this more explosively and higher will be able to translate it into a ton of other important movements seen in sports based on this concept. When you sprint, triple flexion and a triple extension. When cutting, flexion and extension. Hitting a ball, throwing a ball. Almost all of the major and most important movements to your sport is based on the simple concept of triple flexion to triple extension or force absorption with force application in some way. By learning how to effectively jump higher in a multitude of modalities, you'll be able to load force better, apply it, and absorb it inside of a basic movement pattern. Then when it comes to plyometrics, which is not the same as jump training, even though they have some crossover, they are different. We get to focus on some other more important training aspects when it comes to performance. By working on increasing ground force production, or an athlete's ability to apply more force to the ground, all while reducing ground contact time. Or more simply put, plyometrics work on an athlete being able to quickly apply more force into the ground, for example, when sprinting, then through applying more force and quickly bouncing the foot off the ground, limiting how long the foot spins on the ground, they will be able to sprint faster. A combination of proper jump training, effective plyos, with a mixture of single leg and bilateral movement is a key or an extension of training that will make any athlete better. Those who can jump higher or do plyometrics more explosively, oftentimes the ones that get to sprint or move faster. Inside of or alongside of jump training, we have an even more base level concept that oftentimes is looked over, and that is balance. But balance is the foundation to so much of what an athlete needs for better performance. Balance isn't just, oh, you fall a lot or you're clumsy down the stairs. Balance in a more scientific or performance standpoint is being able to maintain your center of gravity over your base of support. So without getting too far into detail here, all the sciences behind what balance really is, think of balance as your ability to keep your feet underneath of you all while doing a movement and not falling, but being under control. The better you can control your feet underneath your center of gravity, the better you're going to be able to do pretty much everything inside of a sport or your day. And I know all that sounds very simple and basic, but let's take this a step further from two scenarios. A good athlete with good balance has a strong ability to maintain their center of gravity over their feet no matter what they're doing skill-wise or other. But a great athlete not only has great balance, but the ability to push their feet outside of their center of gravity and maintain control. A good play is an athlete being able to jump straight up and make a good catch. But the great athlete is being able to dive and catch a ball in any direction. Then scenario number 2, if you can't balance well, then you won't be able to slow down fast. And note I said slow down fast. We want to be able to slow down as quickly as possible to cut and change direction quicker. If you're sprinting forward quickly or going to change direction and you can't slow down well because you're losing your balance, then you're not going to be able to precisely cut and change direction as well as you want to. The limiting factor of your performance is at a base level reduced by your balance translating into your ability to slow down, which will make you a slower athlete. You can only sprint as fast as which you can slow down, so your body almost have a speed limit that forces you to only go as fast as which you can slow down. So if you can slow down faster or slow down better, then you get to sprint faster. If all of a sudden a 10-year-old was as fast as Usain Bolt, the problem doesn't reside in their speed, but their ability to slow down that speed, absorb force, and maintain their balance. What is agility? All too often I have parents asking me or telling me that they want their athletes to have better agility or faster feet. Agility is one of those words that always gets thrown out there because of its prevalence in sports verbiage. But so many people really don't have a clue what it is. Then if I ask them, what is agility, like I just did, the responses are typically more change direction, quickness, but not really what agility is. It's an umbrella of what they're saying, but not specifically getting the right answer. So agility is, simply put, your ability to react to a stimulus quickly and easily. Key word there is stimulus or react. So if we're actually talking about agility training, then there has to be a stimulus or a reactive component. We do agility drills over at the gym, but most of which a parent or athlete is looking for when it comes to what they're really saying is for their athlete to better be able to change direction or small space quickness. Reactive drills are great when it comes to sports performance. They have their time and their place. But it's hard to simulate the number or the amount of stimuluses you actually see in a game when you're doing a controlled drill. So if we can get an athlete to work on their change direction, their overall small space quickness in tighter situations or drills, it will translate to their agility. If I were to take two twins, one of which we just did agility drills, either reacting to a ball or shadowing a teammate, and the other twin doing specific, high-speed, non-reactive, intense change of direction drills. Then have them both apply it to their sport. I would argue the one that did the change of direction drills will be better off, as long as they translate that overall speed of change direction, that intensity of that learned movement into the stimuluses that they actually see or get in their game. Game time stimuluses are way higher than just a reactive drill in front of somebody. We do them, but we want to be able to change direction fast, move quicker, and it'll translate to your agility based on your reaction inside the stimuluses of your game. Then the last thing that is heavily misrepresented when it comes to agility is the old-fashioned fast foot nonsense. Fast foot concept. We'll get to the nonsense in a second. And this explanation of why that concept is nonsense will also relate to what I just said. If you were to be given the option to have a football player, a tap dancer, or a bowler on your soccer team, which would you choose? The tap dancers, without a doubt, have faster feet, but you'd be much better off choosing the football player. Well, why? It's because fast feet don't matter if you can't change direction or position, whether there's a stimulus or not. Fast feet as a concept sounds cool and all, and it's always thrown out there as an idea or just a way of talking about sports performance. But if you can't beat a defender or make a play and move in transition, fast feet don't matter. So you're not really talking about fast feet. A lot of times people aren't really talking about agility. You're talking about more of change direction, and those concepts mesh into what you're really looking for. Now let's change gears here a little bit and talk more about the beginning of a training session when it comes to warm-ups, especially when we're talking about sports performance. If you're warming up for a game or a practice, you should be doing dynamic movements to get you ready for that game, prevent your risk of injury, and prep to do what you need to do. But when it comes to sports performance, there are added components that athletes all too often like to skip over or lack effort in. When we are doing a warm-up over at the gym, it's not just doing simple stretches to get ready for training. There are tons of movements, light work plyos, and skill sets we're trying to work on. For example, on linear speed days or sprint-focused workouts, during the warm-up, we do a significant amount of skipping, bounding, single leg hopping, and basically drills inside of the warm-up. I say drills because a lot of what we're doing is set up to work on certain mechanics when it comes to sprinting on a weekly basis consistently with reps. On that weekly basis, when those mechanics are performed with effort and tension, it will better improve their skill acquisition in relation to sprinting more mechanically sound and faster. Very much like you'd see a track athlete doing, which has the fastest athletes. When doing certain movements like an A skip, B skip, bounding, pogos, and so on, every single week inside of something as simple as a warm-up, again with intention, you can easily sneak in drill work or skill work at higher frequency. So in hindsight of everything I just said about warm-ups, when it comes to training for sports performance or over at Edge, the warm-up isn't just something you mindlessly go through or brush over. The warm-ups are designed for you to consistently work on skill sets, intentionally working on movement to improve faster. All right, 2 more topics to go, and arguably the most important topics of this video. And I say the most important because these 2 topics are the ones that most people interpret wrong, get the most misinformation about, or just overall do them incorrectly because there's so much bad information about them. Weightlifting. And let's start here. Can you walk up the stairs fast? If I asked you on any given day to sprint up a flight of stairs as fast as possible, could you do it fast without feeling like your leg's gonna snap due to soreness? If the answer is no the majority of the time, then how the heck do you expect to sprint fast on the field or court on any given day? Mind you, I understand I didn't give you a warm-up for sprinting up the stairs, but that's not the point. If you're an athlete and every single training session or weightlifting session you do causes you to be so sore the next day at school, the next 3 days, you're hanging on for dear life to the handrail, your training is off. Athletes are not bodybuilders. They're not powerlifters. Weightlifting, or better put, proper weightlifting for an athlete, when done correctly, should lead to better performance on the field through proper frequency, intensity, volume, and progressions. Yes, sometimes after training, you are going to be sore. You have to push yourself at times, but not all the time. We want, or athletes want, everyone wants better performance in games, not just PRs in the weight room. But that being said, and in perception of what I'm about to say contradicting it, you can't lift heavier weights if you don't ever lift heavy weights. And if you don't ever lift heavier weights, how do you plan on getting stronger? That's where good programming comes in, pressing the gas at the right times and respecting some of the other nuances in lifting I'm about to go over. One last little thing on that whole spiel when it comes to weightlifting that'll hopefully clear up some confusion and bring this whole thing together. For athletes, especially those that are more often in season than out of season, the most important key factor is consistency over time. Consistency with the appropriate amount of intensity. It doesn't matter if you can squat 2 times your body weight like so many people throw around if you're slow on the field. I would much rather have an athlete squat their body weight at a good depth, fast and under control, because it's going to translate to better performance. Like I said before, performance in games over PRs in the weight room. Here are the nuances. Breaks in between sets. You need to take them. And better yet, you need to time them. If you're lifting heavier weights or trying to lift heavier weights and you're only taking 30-second to 1-minute breaks between each set, you're going to have a very hard time getting stronger, if probably not getting as strong at all. For heavier sets or bigger movements, you need to be taking 1.5 to maybe up to 3 to 5 minutes depending on your experience level and age. Those longer breaks will allow you to hit better sets, more reps with heavier weights, and get stronger by just working smarter. When it comes to weightlifting or true strength training, you shouldn't be sprinting through your sets, making the workout hard more in a cardio fashion, but more so in the intensity of each working set. Then one last thing. This goes for younger athletes or newer athletes to lifting. Get your reps in. In the beginning, you really want to develop a training age before you start chasing crazy numbers or really heavy weights. Let me break this down. Your training age is based on the amount of time you have experience with lifting. And I'm not saying you've lifted for a month here, 3 months there, over 3 years. It needs to be consistent. And inside of that training age, let's say you've lifted for 2 years. Seems like a long time, which it is, but not really. Let's use the bench press in this scenario. Once a week, you flat bar bench press for, let's say, 4 sets of 8. Give or take, sometimes you do 3 to 5 reps, 8 to 10 reps, whatever. Let's use 8 as that kind of middle ground, or a good average. 4 sets of 8 reps per week adds up to 32 reps per week. Multiply that time, let's say 50 weeks per year to keep it easy. So 100 weeks over 2 years, which means you've done 3,200 reps in your training career. So 3,200 opportunities to work on the skill set of doing a barbell bench. And yes, weightlifting is very much a skill set, just like anything else inside of your sport. Throwing a ball, kicking, catching a ball, whatever skill required. 3,200 reps when it comes to learning a skill is nothing. Think about how many times a soccer player passes a ball in a week. Let's just keep it easy and lowball that number at 100 times per week. Do the math again using the same parameters. So 100 passes for 100 weeks, and you get 10,000 passes. So the reasoning for that breakdown is to put in perspective that weightlifting takes time. So focus more on consistency rather than intensity. Last category, recovery. And don't skip it. I'm not going to cliche through this topic. For over 100 years now, we've pretty much been conducting a long-term experiment on sleep through daylight savings time. When the clocks spring forward and everyone loses an hour of sleep, there's a 24% increase in the risk of a heart attack the very next day, which is inversely seen at almost the same percentage as far as a decreased risk when the clock falls back and we gain an hour. So when we gain an hour of sleep, there's almost the same percentage of a decrease and the amount of heart attacks the next day. The reason I bring that statistic up is to show the importance of sleep and the effect it can have. There's a bunch of young athletes listening to this, and they're probably not too worried about having a heart attack. But sleep is the most important part about recovering faster. The better you recover, the better you perform. You need to be getting a minimum of 7 hours of sleep, and ideally up to at least 8. If you consistently sleep enough hours per week, you will drastically improve not only your performance, but reduce the risk of injury, be able to train harder, improve your overall energy throughout the day. I could talk about sleep for hours. I've actually done a whole podcast on it because it's that important. Besides food intake and water intake, which I'm not going to go into detail on this video, the last recovery topic I'm going to go over is you're doing too much. This one might be for the parents as well. I get staying super busy. I get younger athletes playing multiple sports, as they should. But sometimes, in order to improve on one or two things,
you need to do one or two things less.
Sports performance or athletic performance is very heavily relied on this last analogy to finish off this video. Let's say you're coming fresh off summer break. You've had some downtime and you've recovered from the previous season. That recovered state is a fresh square of spring grass and ground. You have tryouts and start your high school season. In those first few weeks of high intensity competitive practices, you're quickly digging a lot into that patch of grass. The harder you practice, the more times you're training, the more games you have, the more you dig into that ground. And the less you focus on sleep or get enough sleep, the more often you don't get enough food, the right food, or drink enough water, the bigger not only the hole gets, but the bigger the shovel gets. And the only way to put dirt back into the hole before you find yourself deeper and deeper is by making sure you put dirt back in with proper recovery. All while paying attention to how much dirt you're taking out and how big the shovel gets. Trying to prevent the point at which you're getting too deep, that you're flirting with injury and affecting your performance because you're digging so fast that you can't put enough dirt back in. Or even worse, you start having a slight injury and you ignore it and it starts to rain, so the dirt is heavy. So at this point, getting out of that hole, because it is so deep, or getting enough dirt back in, can only be accomplished by taking days off or weeks off in the sun to shine again. Recover better, train smarter, perform better, and subscribe. If you're one of my athletes over at the gym and you just finished watching this video, the keyword is in the description of the video. And note, it changes consistently because I'll see you guys soon. Thank you.